Hi everyone, this is Richard. In this video, let's talk about object-oriented programming. Now, this is typically not something that is brought up early on. It's typically discussed much later in the conversation. I want to bring it up sooner, and if this makes things super complicated, I'm really sorry about it, but for me, actually, it would have been a lot more helpful if I learned things in the beginning. Okay, so object-oriented programming is a programming paradigm. A paradigm is basically kind of a point of view and a philosophy, kind of like a little bit put together. Okay, it's how you see your programming language, all right? And the reason why we have different programming languages is because they have different pros and cons to them. And some people would say that this pro is more important to me, therefore I'll include this in my language. And some people say, yes, but it has some cons, and therefore I don't want that, I'll do it another way. Okay, so that's like a programming paradigm or a philosophy, all right? So I'm going to make a really silly example here, but I will bring it back to the concept of object-oriented programming. By the way, this is only the very fundamentals of object-oriented programming. It's super, super high level. It's not meant to be in detail at all whatsoever. It's meant to be at this stage of my learning, okay? So, when we think of it, something like dog jumps, okay? That sentence, right? It's a full sentence. Jumps is the verb, and you could stick a noun in front of it, right? So in English, we could say elephant jumps, rock jumps, dog jumps, right? So the problem with the elephant jumps is elephants usually can't jump, right? And a rock, it can't do things, it can't jump either. So we have a problem where if we have a verb and we could just stick whatever we want in front of it, it doesn't work that way because not everything can jump, right? Okay, so remember in a computer program, everything has to be very precise and exact. And if anything is wrong, you will come up with an error, okay? Making a mistake will cause a program not to work. So how do we prevent that from happening, right? Well, again, in the real world, an object-oriented paradigm, basically, point of view, is we focus more on the noun rather than the verb, okay? So rather than focusing on jumps, we focus more on dog, elephant, or rock. So in other words, dog has the ability, the functional ability to jump. It has other functions, right? It can also run and eat, but the ability to jump is built into the dog itself. Right? So an elephant has the ability to run and eat, but not to jump, right? Different functions for this particular creature called the elephant. A rock has no functional ability, it just sits there, right? It has some properties, some characteristics to it, but it doesn't really have any functional ability, at least not that I know of. Maybe you can come up with something. So if we see it this way, wait a minute. If we focus on the dog, I might say the dog can jump, run, eat, but it also has other functional abilities, right? You could fetch. Did I write that? No, I didn't. So it could fetch too, right? Yes, well, I didn't add that in, but that's okay. I can always add that as part of the dog in the future. But if I just add the dog to the jumps, I might, or rock, I might add elephant. Elephant can, what do? They make some noises, right? If I don't have elephant making a noise, I can add that in the future, but if I say that the elephant jumps, I'll get an outright error. So I hope that makes sense. If you focus on the verb, you could put things, nouns, in front of the verb, but it might be wrong. If you focus on the noun and say the functional ability, and you give functional ability to that creature, you will never, these features will, because you're going to define them ahead of time, will never be part of the dog. Part of the thing. So elephant jumping will never be part of an elephant. Running, eating, and jumping will never be part of the rock because you will make sure that it doesn't happen that way. All right? So let's get back to object-oriented programming. In programming, in C# specifically, object-oriented languages, everything is an object. What does that mean? Think of objects as actual physical things which we can do something with, okay? So everything, especially the variables and the values. So if we look at like console.writeline, or even do something like this, what do we call it? Int a equals 1. So int is the keyword, a is an object. It's a variable, right? So it's an object. Excuse me, hang on a second. Number 1 is the what's it called, an object as well. It's a value. So it's an object as well. So if it's an object, like in dog, elephant, or rock, it must have characteristics to this, and it must have functional abilities to it as well. And it's different from a integer, from a double, from a bool. It has different characteristics to it. And let's go over the next few videos and let's talk about what these functional abilities are, okay? How do we actually use this though? It's used by typically dot. So for example, I would say dog dot jump, elephant dot run. Can't do anything for rock, but that's how it's used. So it would be the noun and then the verb for the noun in and of itself. So that's the syntax that we would actually use. And again, we'll go over that more in details in the next few videos. Thanks.